Good morning, everyone. Welcome to panel 8 on digital and social media, still keeping on the topic of magazines. My name is Ana Figueiras, and I will be the chair for this session. Before we start, I would like to remind everyone of some technical details. Please keep your cameras and microphones switched off to allow for a better experience in terms of sound and internet connection. When your turn comes to speak, the speakers will be unmuted. They will receive a notification to allow the camera to be turned on. Every presenter has 20 minutes to present. And at the end of all presentations, when every presenter has presented, we will have some questions from the audience. Questions will be received through Zoom chat, and I think by the third day, most of you already know how to use the chat option. All sessions will be recorded by the conference organizing committee, and presentations will be made available online unless otherwise specified. So we ask you to please do not record your session yourself, because we will be recording and will be made available. So the first presenter of this session will be Dora Santos Silva from Nova University of Lisbon, who will be talking to us about editorial positioning strategies for print magazines in the digital environment. Good morning, Dora.
Okay, good morning. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for the opportunity of being here, presenting this research. I will share my screen, okay? So, I don't know if you are seeing it.
Yes.
Okay. So, I will put it full screen. So my research is about, as Anna said, thank you so much, Anna, about print magazines in the digital environment, editorial and positioning strategies. So my main goal is seeing how is the media magazine industry innovating in the digital environment regarding the editorial process on one hand and the media brand positioning on the other hand. And I have three main research questions to achieve these goals. So first, I looked for the main magazine brand extensions in the digital environment and how can they relate with the print product. My research question number 2 is, which are the main editorial differences between the print product and the digital one? And finally, which are the main strategies to keep the magazine relevant both in print and in the digital world? So my corpus is this. I chose 3 magazines that are print, these magazine brands that are print at their core. So I chose Monocle. It's a magazine from UK. Forbes Portugal, that is an extension from the brand, the international brand Forbes, and the monthly magazine The Atlantic from USA. I analyzed the content for both print and online between January 2020 and April, and I interview the editors. Not all, I didn't have all the answers, so I didn't put them here. So regarding theoretical background, when I say that the magazines innovated, all the media industry tried to innovate regarding to answer the crisis. So What is innovation? I see innovation as something new, or for example, just new combinations using Joseph Schumpeter main definition. So many researchers are trying to develop a typology for media innovations. These types of media innovations are the most unanimous. So a media can innovate regarding its product, for example, developing an app, developing a new section, regarding their process, meaning the way that they distribute their content, the positioning, regarding the way they presented themselves to the public, the paradigm is here business model, and the social, the way they interact with people. But this typology of media innovations, they are not that so clear to magazines, because magazines in the media industry has special features. For example, it has a periodicity, materiality, has we saw in the first day of the Congress, and its online presence is not necessarily digital magazine. So magazines act differently in the digital environment. They can be an extension of the print product. They can be a digital enhanced version of the magazine, or a new media product itself. So that's why we have to look for special features in the typology of media innovation. So regarding Monocle, Monocle is a monthly magazine from UK. It has now about 15 years, and it is sustainable since the third year of existence. So I define Monocle regarding its positioning and editorial process in the digital environment has a digital extended media brand experience positioning. Why? Because in Monocle, everything is paid. So all the print content is paid, and all the print content that appears online is paid too. But they have a really good brand experience with a lot of digital, native digital content. So they don't give away any content for free. They're not on social media, for example. They have a lot of media extensions. For example, besides Monocle magazine, they have 2 seasonal magazines and online radio stations. So, and for the radio, all the programs are single sponsored. They have many conferences, 5 retail shops and 4 coffee shops around the world. And their business model is mainly paid content, co-branded advertising, and retail. Regarding the editorial, so in print, it maintains as the core business because of the quality of paper. The materiality of the magazine is really important for them because they associate, and the readers do that too, they associate the print magazine to a certain status and style. Okay, that's why the magazine has so many different papers in just one edition, and nothing is for free. For example, sometimes the magazines, the companies give away their magazines for hotels or some transports but they don't give them for free. So if we can buy the magazine, or we can make a digital subscription of the magazine. There is not only a digital subscription. If I subscribe the digital magazine, I always receive the print too. So they don't have a print subscription and the digital subscriptions is the same thing. And they have free content on their website, but not the magazine itself. So the magazine is only accessed by a subscription. So free content is radio, short films, newsletters, and of course, shop, conference, etc. So digital subscription is related to 22% of all profit, and print magazine is about 50% of all profit. So the shop and the retails and coffee shops are associated with 30%. Okay, so regarding Forbes has a completely different positioning on the web, and I defined it as a magazine window shop, because all the content that appears in the website, on the website, is a teaser for the print magazine. So they don't have a digital subscription. They only have a digital subscription for mobile devices on Google Play or iOS. They don't have any digital only content. So we look at the website and it's only, for example, the first paragraph, or the first and second paragraph of some article that appears in the magazine, in print magazine. So the digital presence is only, it's not part of an editorial process. It's mainly a marketing sales component. So print is the core, although the magazine is really, it has so few pages. It's very poor paper quality. And of course it has exclusive content because it doesn't appear on the website. So they don't have anything else on the website besides teasers for the print magazine. Regarding the Atlantic, we define it as an enhanced digital positioning, because the Atlantic has different strategies for both print and online. For example, they also have, as Monocle does, they have digital only free content, podcasts, newsletters, daily ideas. But regarding the magazine itself, it allows, they allow the reader to read 4 articles presented both in print magazine and in online, but only 4. So if we want to look at any other, we have to make the subscription. And they have 3 types of subscriptions: digital only, print and digital, and premium, that it's a subscription without any ads. So this tells us that the print is not core anymore. I interviewed the editor and they say it's really not their main goal to have print as core. So they have different types of digital subscriptions, and they invest really on the digital subscriptions of the magazine. The digital presence is really a lot more than the print magazine experience. So to conclude, answering the previous research questions, which are the main magazine brand extensions in the digital environment, we saw that podcasts and newsletters and teasers for the print magazines are the main brand extensions, and print magazines still struggle with the strategy to exist online because, and it's curious, any of the magazines studied has a digital version of the magazine on the site, meaning an enhanced digital version, not a copy of the print magazine. So regarding the research question number 2, which are the editorial differences between the print product and the digital one, there is none. Regarding the magazine itself, so we could say that the stories could be enhanced and presented in a different way using digital formats, but the magazines that I studied prefer to just copy paste the print content and create native digital content, okay, not to enhance the print content. So the magazines themselves don't explore the digital potential on their core business. Regarding the third question, which are the main strategies to keep the magazine relevant, both in print and in the digital world? I didn't see any editorial strategy, really. It's mainly an economic strategy, part of their business model. So they simply have free content that it's not on the magazine. And regarding the print magazine, they only put the articles online and people have to pay for them, or the content is just a teaser for the main magazine. So the main conclusion I see here, and for example, 10 years ago, this would be much different, because 10 years ago, all the magazines were experimenting digital versions on tablets, and for example, Wired and other magazines, and the magazine was really enhanced with digital formats, with podcasts on the articles, or for example, hypertext. So in this case, none of the magazine studies put at least one link on their articles online. So there is not the editorial strategy doesn't really exist. So thank you, and I will answer all your questions at the end. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Dora, for your insightful presentation. There are already lots of questions in the chat. Next, we will have the paper Mapping Digital Magazines, Reading as a Practice of Disconnection by Carla Ferreira and Kátia Ferreira and Carla Ganito from Católica University. Kátia will be presenting. Good morning, Kátia.
Thank you. Sorry, I was struggling with the microphone, but that's already on. So I'm sharing my screen. Okay, so good morning. Thank you very much for this opportunity. As Anna said, I'm presenting a co-author paper, co-author with my colleague Carla Ganito, is here with us today. So this paper joins two of our research interests. On one hand, digital reading, as we were involved in a 3-year international research project on digital reading worldwide, and on the other hand, connecting and disconnecting practices across life stages, an ongoing project within our research center at Católica University. So our goals, I'm sorry, this is not, okay, goals. So the paper aims at mapping people's practices of disconnecting as a form of resistance and media initiatives that offer offline spaces. We also want to assess how reading is still being shaped as an unplugged activity. Regarding the methodology, so to pursue this objective, we'll take a mixed methods approach. We will provide insights from two surveys, an international survey on digital reading practices and a survey on Portugal, part of an exploratory study of disconnecting practices. We will then showcase two case studies of media initiatives of digital disconnection. One of those is Monocle, who Dora has just presented us, and the other one is the Disconnect magazine. So just to give you a brief background of our research, we are conducting a research project on connecting, disconnecting, aiming at understanding users' practices and perspectives about those uses and how those practices and beliefs have been shaped by digital media sector and the strategies that have been implemented by this sector. So we wanted really to go beyond the rationale of disconnection as a deviation from the norm or as a form of performative resistance and look at gradations and combinations of use and non-use. We'll now briefly present some of the results of the study conducted with my colleagues Carla, who is with us today, and Ana Jorge, that sought to map strategies of the industry to get users to be connected and practices and tactics of users to disconnect more or less permanently. This is part then of the wider cross-national project, the project entitled On-Off Digital Practices of Connecting and Disconnecting Across Life Stages, that aims at tracking people's practices of connecting and disconnecting in relation to their life course. So we take as granted that according to the life stage, those practices will be different and how they are managed. So now some of the results. The vast majority of the respondents was a frequent user of the internet. So 92% use internet several times a day. 4% stated to use it every day or almost every day, and only 1% stated to use the internet quite rarely. We have identified that people who tried to stop using the internet temporarily over the year before, only about a quarter really engaged in disconnection. From the majority that did not try, 23% said that couldn't do that for professional reasons, in line with disconnection being a luxury. Still, 38% never felt the need to disconnect. Those that engage in disconnecting practices try to stop using through decisions, such as time to use and not to use, to decide to use less, rather than technical configurations or market options, like, for instance, detox holidays, change data plans, so to use market products and offer to enable or to help them to disconnect. Those who try to disconnect were looking mainly for more time to do other things, and this was the answer of 78% of the respondents. And even those who haven't tried to disconnect, 60% thinks this would give them more time to do other leisure activities, and such as, for example, and it's an example stated by the respondents, long form reading. So in this scope, we wanted to question how books and reading platforms and apps are keeping readers on and off. So we started by analyzing briefly analyzing some examples of the most used reading platforms and apps, and you have them here. This was really an exploratory analysis, and these are our main conclusions from the exploratory observation. So all the apps offer the possibility of offline reading, being the exception the web-based platforms that do not due to their nature. So they are web-based and only function online. They all use several strategies to keep users on, such as recommendations, communities, social reading, and tagging. And these are strategies that we are familiar with them from other platforms such as social media. So now I will present briefly the main conclusions of the digital reading and the transformation of reading stimulus and of book institutions project. So that was a research project that allowed us to map digital reading practices worldwide. And here you have the list of the countries that we have studied. So some of the main conclusions, and this will be quite briefly. So the first one is that reading matters. So, and it matters for internet users. When purchasing a device with internet access, the ability to read text was important in the purchasing decision, especially in countries such as China and BRICS. Second main conclusion is that digital reading is on the rise. So there is a growing interest for digital reading, and people expect to read more on digital format in the future ahead. Third main conclusion, and this is the last one we want to highlight today, is that sharing is not a priority. So we consider this a really interesting finding because sharing is not at all the most valued feature of connection. Instead, the most valued attributes regarding digital reading are access to more information, speed, and access. So now the third part. A new digital ecosystem, staying on seems to be at the surface the most effective strategy to engage with the audience. This is especially true for the media and other creative industries that suffered in the last years an abrupt adaptation to digital environment and depend highly on social media to disseminate their work. However, the on formula does not suit all and is not being followed for all. And staying off social media is also a clear strategy for some media and creative industries, as we'll see with the presentation of our chosen case studies. Being the first, Monocle. So, as you already know, it is a British global affairs, culture and lifestyle magazine. It was launched in February 2007. It was founded by Tyler Brule, who was also the founder of Wallpaper magazine, and the print strategy of Monocle has a lot of similarities with Wallpaper regarding particularly the materiality that Dora was talking about, okay? The choice of the paper, the print characteristics. So the product itself, it's a quite taken care of product or graphic product. So it is part of a media franchise with the same name, constituted, as you already know, by a magazine, a 24-hour radio station, a website, and a retailer and media brand. The magazine top markets are the United States, the UK, Australia, Canada, Singapore, Germany, Hong Kong, Portugal, France, and Italy. So Monocle, the worldwide awarded magazine, is quite an emblematic example. So it is a print-only magazine. It counts with 10 issues per year, to which are added special extra publications, the forecast, the escapist, and the drinking and dining directory, also printed. The sales are over 80,000 copies per issue, and it counts with over 22,000 subscribers. It doesn't have a Facebook or a Twitter account because it would mean to give content for free. Keeping in mind that the magazine has a legion of fans and it's profitable for over 8 years, these strategies then deserve some thought. So in their own words, and now I'm quoting, information that it's in the tab about in the website, they say, "We make sure that our readers feel part of something more like a club, offering regular invitations to subscriber events and ensuring that they always have great service from our team." So presenting it as much more than a magazine. So it's an experience. That's quite a marketing strategy also. So regarding the strategy, since its launch, that Monocle follows a print-first business strategy. The digital presence of the magazine is restricted to a tab on the website, so non-subscribers only have access to the beginning of the article. Subscribers have full access to the Monocle archive online, but it's a shovelware practices, PDFs of the printed magazine, and as Dora was saying, it's not an enhanced digital magazine at all. It's a plain PDF with no multimedia elements at all. The website is independent from the magazine. The relationship between this and the magazine is circumscribed to the previews of print issues in the film tab. The magazine, as already said, has no Facebook or Twitter presence at all. So now the second case is a more recent example, and it's part of the creative industries. It's not a part of the cultural industry, so it has more the startup characteristics. It's a more experimental project. It's the Disconnect magazine. So, and it is more or less like it's a digital magazine that only can be read offline. So it's the online-offline paradox. So in the words of the founder, instead of a paywall, the Disconnect offers their readers a pay attention wall. The site takes advantage of a function built into most web browsers, which detects whether a user is connected or not to the internet. There are ways around that. Chris Wallin, the founder, says, for example, a user could put a browser in developer mode and tell it to pretend that it is offline. But he figures most people probably won't go those lengths. Plus, the request to disconnect is mostly designed to make a point. So it is then, as I already said, an offline digital magazine of commentary, fiction, and poetry. It was launched in February 2018 and designed as an hybrid platform. In the words of the founder, Chris Wallin, he said, "We created the Disconnect to embrace positive aspects of the internet, use of dissemination and access while pushing against some of the nefarious features like ubiquitous distractions." In a commentary published in the first issue of this magazine, Alex Beatty states that the motto for the project is to offer a space of resistance, of getting away as a privilege. In the same line, a selected few of the readers of Monocle paid over 1,000 euros to join the editorial team in a closed event in Switzerland where they were swimming with the founders. So, like offering something that is different from what is being the most common business strategy. So, contrary to the Monocle, the Disconnect is essentially an exploratory project that is not making money, and as they do not track users and do not allow for advertising. So that's why I was saying it's not part of the cultural industries, but the creative ones, because this is quite experimental. Regarding the business model, so it's a different business model from the Monocle. As I already said, is one that explores the online access, offline reading paradox. So you need to get online to reach the magazine, but then you need to disconnect to be able to read it. Its digital presence is based on the website, which functions as the medium to access the magazine issues, which can only be read offline. The project counts with 2 additional digital media: a newsletter sent to subscribers by email to inform about the releasing of a new issue, is the only use of the newsletter, and the Twitter account is used to promote the issues, and it's to say that, okay, a new issue was launched, or just to highlight some contents, but we do not have access to the full content through the Twitter platform. So, jumping to conclusions. Some concluding remarks. So there is an environment that strives to have users connected through network communication practices, which involve rich media diets, combining legacy and digital media consumption, and which is contributing to the emergence of a network readership. It is interesting to notice that most reading apps and platforms do not focus on disconnecting the users, but to offer them the opportunity to develop a network reading practices. The option for online or offline reading practices is framed by the reader's context. Nevertheless, reading is an activity that still is associated with unplugged moments. Our case studies propose an alternative approach. The Disconnect aims at a hybrid model that takes the best of the internet and tries to, its negative aspects, while Monocle strives for asserting the print magazine as an appealing medium embracing a non-social media presence policy. Both invite readers to enjoy different forms of unplugged reading. Both are outsiders within the contemporary media sector by renegotiating the role of the internet and digital media, offering users the possibility of being disconnected and embrace more private reading practices. Private also in the sense that offline reading do not generate at all the same amount of data as do digital ones. So it really also tries to renegotiate the datification of readers. And that's it. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Katia. That was a great presentation also. Finally, we have Pedro Jerónimo from University of Beira Interior presenting Preguiça magazine from editorial product to community impact. Good morning, Pedro.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here, and I'm going to share my presentation. Hope you are seeing it. No. I think already.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. So, good morning again. It's very curious to be here because after the two presentations that talked about international magazines, I came to talk about a local Portuguese magazine that already is dead, Preguiça magazine. But I think it's important to talk about, there are some case studies that must be, that needed research because they are very interesting. This is the case of Preguiça magazine. And I started with this idea. It's an introduction to journalism, the journalism about Karin Jørgensen that was focused about local media, and she underlined this idea that I subscribe, that for media researchers, journalism researchers, even about magazine researchers, we need to start to look at some failure cases, to some smaller newsrooms cases in other countries, rather than the usual ones that we saw most in like US, like UK. Must look to other countries, other realities, and also failure cases, cases that already died or dead, like Preguiça magazine. And also pointed some, this is kind of like an initial thoughts about how I thought about this in bringing this case. There are some studies that point that local journalists not so much in tune with their audience. They imagine that the audience used to work or act in a way that they not act, and in the other side, they need to see citizens more as collaborators, not just like readers. And we have a lot of studies pointing this. The journalists that look, not also local journalists, that look for the audience like consumers rather than collaborators, potential collaborators. And also that specifically in the local environment, that the journalists have this ability or have the opportunity to get engaged. The recent studies have talked a lot about engagement. Of course, in local communities, the potential is huge, but not every day or every time this is a reality. This engagement that sometimes in some situation did not happen. So I bring this definition of community because it's important to be here. People that that interact and support each other and are bounded by shaped experience or characteristics, a sense of belonging, and often in their physical proximity. This idea of community. In fact, when I look at the title of my presentations, I was at the end I was with this idea to change the last word, impact, to engagement, but I let them that way. And but I'm going to talk more in front about engagement. For our colleagues that don't know so well Portugal, a very quick look at Portugal. What this is? I'm talking about a local magazine, online magazine from that born in a city called Leiria. Looking at Portugal, mapping the magazine is happening in Lisbon. It's being held in Lisbon, where is Preguiça, where Preguiça born, and also where I'm talking. It's from Covilhã, from region of Castelo Branco, for having an idea of the context, and also point that in Leiria, at the time that Preguiça was published from 2013 to 2016. At that time, in that city, there were one daily newspaper, and then 2013, 4 weekly newspapers, two of them from Catholic Church, that were also that no longer exist. And so at the time, the Preguiça magazine ended, they have one daily newspaper and 2 weeklies. What was the idea of talking about Preguiça? The idea here and the objective is to look what was Preguiça magazine from the point of view of project, the content, and also the engagement with local community. Try to identify the motivations of the creation of this project, the editorial criteria, business models, journalistic genders, themes, and online journalism potentialities present. As methodology, I used the interviews with the 4 co-founders of Preguiça magazine. They were all 4 journalists, 2 of them working in one of the weeklies. In the case of Claudio Garcia, in 2013, he was working at Região Leiria, and after some years, when the Preguiça ended, he worked at the Jornal Leiria. And also, I talked with the 2 culture editors of the 2 weeklies, Jornal Leiria, Região Leiria. And also, I bring at the end of the presentation, like a content analysis of a sample that I grabbed from using archive.org that allows me, and was a big help when I did my PhD, working with some cases that did not exist anymore, or looking for older versions of their websites. So it was a tool very important to get into the content that I bring. So looking at the evolution of the Preguiça magazine, and also what they published. As I said, the Preguiça magazine was an online local magazine. It started at January 13th in 2013 and ended at 29th of December 2016, almost 4 years. And this quote that I put here was published on the website in their first edition. And I underline the big, like the goal, like the objective of the project. When we talk about Preguiça magazine, we talk Preguiça magazine and and business card of them. The big idea was, then do not say you have nothing to do. It was a group of 4 journalists that want to prove that exist, that were things happening in the city, on that region, but specifically in that city, related to culture, and more focused in culture. And they wanted to prove that communicating to community, that those things, some things related to music, to arts, to some places to go, to some people to meet, and they wanted to prove it. They decided, this is a very curious thing, it was an online magazine that was published once a week. They decided to publish at Thursday morning, to publish the magazine. More in front, I'm going to talk why they decide this. A very quick first steps to know what was the big idea, why they decide to do this. And talking with the co-founders, they told me two of them were talking about this idea for years. Both of them worked in those local newspapers that I'm talking about, two weekly newspapers that had a very specific section focused on culture, but they think they don't do the right look for the subjects that they wanted to do. And so they had this idea in mind for a couple of years. Then they invited these two guys, invited two other colleagues, two other journalists to start to think of Preguiça. And in 1 month, they decided what was going to be the magazine, and they put it online. The idea, after some discussion of being an online magazine, was related about essentially about the cost, and because the audience that they want to grab were in a time of social media. The audience they want to engage with were more on that environment, and also because of the cost of the publishing this magazine. The initial idea was to publish 4 or 6 articles every week, plus some other content, very focused on a very relaxed language, mostly cultural in nature. The way that they write were not like they usually do as journalists in local newspapers. They're not that format of core journalism. We're very relaxed language, a very humorous way to talk with their audience. And one of the things I want to underline was said by one of the co-founders. Above all, we had no problem with not taking ourselves seriously. This was, in my opinion, as we're going to see in front, why they published during 4 years, and as I'm going to say in front, without no business model. So this was the look of the first edition. Here at your left was the main sections. It's going to be the ones that I'm going to look a little more closer at front. Sections about arts, cinema, letters, music, stages, and trends. This is where the main sections of the Preguiça magazine and the content appears there. In here, they also had like an agenda to show what's going to happen in the next days after the editions. So, as I said, main sections were those. They have already 4 more innovative sections, Palco Preguiça, where some local bands in the city appears for the first time. They recorded videos, they make video recording sessions with local bands that some of these bands look for Preguiça to show themselves to the world for the first time. They also have Instagram, the Preguiça, or a photo gallery that they use, grabbing pictures published by their audience, their users, using the hashtag of Preguiça. They do like a they use they aggregate that photos, and they have Retrusery Central, a very curious section where the photojournalist of the crew and in their daily work, he was walking on the streets and photographing. It's like a shop of clothes, but not selling anything, just showing people with different outfits, and was one of the sections. And other one, this is one very interesting. They call for a local writer, and they develop a collaborative soap opera where with 15 authors, they bring with one picture for each author, and each author must write a chapter of this collaborative soup. It was a very interesting, innovative session that they bring it on. Thinking editorial about the way they use content, specifically focused on text and photos, because they had a photojournalist. The basic structure was focused on this, text and photos. At that time, 2013, the use of photographs on the entire width of the site or the website was not so usual in national media, even in the local one. And also they decided to invite bloggers like Chronics to write Chronics, and also they have galleries. Why weekly? Because they wanted to launch the things that were going to happen in the weekend. Also because, as one of the co-founders pointed, it was to be modern and classical at the same time, digital with analog time. In digital environment, but go out on Thursdays. Online can also be calm, and it worked. And also because the tradition in that city was that the 2 weeklies get out also on Thursday. So as they told me, it's like a rebellion decision of them to launch this project, because they want to prove to editors of those journals and people, directors of the journals where they work with, that in fact there were things very interesting to talk about, and different ways to do it, and was a motivation to launch the Preguiça magazine. This is the way that looks the homepage in 2014. This is the way it looks in 2015, and also they changed some of the main sections, but especially arts and music and trends were like 3 of the main sections of that develop more content to the website. And this was the final issue. From the launch of the Preguiça magazine to the end, they changed the layout 3 times. One crucial thing was about the business model. They don't have any plan to from the beginning. They all just before friends that joined themselves to write about the things that they wanted to write about it, and they don't thought in any business model. But one of the motivations to end of the project, as one of the co-founders said, at a certain point it started to become painful, because they have bills to pay, and the project don't give them any money. They tried, in fact, with some cards, with 10 euros, people can buy a card and have discounts in shops in the city. And also they launched, as we're going to see in front, 2 printed. They do the opposite of the most of magazines. They started as printed versions, and then went to online. In this case, they do the other thing, that was being an online magazine that put it out 2 printed versions, annual version of and printed version of the magazine. They had a lot of moral support, but almost non-financial. This is the covers of the 2 magazines that they printed out in annual edition with a collective, with a group of content that they published in the online version. That they made a selection and published on the Preguiça magazine. They told me that when this go out to be sold, they don't have any costs, because advertising for these specific editions paid the costs. So was so they don't have any difficulties with that. This was more than online magazines. They were co-founders of a part of festival, art festival with different kinds of arts on the streets of the city. they add on the layer where was the newsroom, one that do exhibits, one that have done workshops and a lot of things. One interesting thing about I think everyone have heard about Alan Kurdi, the Iranian kid that died at the sea, and there was a national initiative, Alan Kurdi Caravan, in 2015 to grab clothes and food to refugees. And there were 30 points in the country, in Portugal, to where the people can put this. The layer of Progressive Magazine, that community brings to join in Coville, and was like the center of the managing of this initiative. They also have a dictionary of Lariense, of local specific words used in the city that they use people to they grab people to help to improve these words. And they also have done ended a party of the here in this box. You have the preguiça, the animal that they done a party to finish this project. Two quotes of the cultural editors, but I resume it in one idea. The existence of Progressive Magazine, we have a before and an after Progressive Magazine, because the presence of this and what they've done in the city and the region, they challenge the local newspapers to reinvent themselves. And of course, they told it's more easier to start a project from zero that do some changes in projects that the oldest newspaper of this have more than 80 years. So it's a lot of decades to try to introduce some changes. I know that I'm on time. Very quick passing this other. I grab in a sample some data from first edition of each year using archive, just to see what was the topics more the subjects and the themes more frequent, and also how they build content to multimedia environments. So what I saw was a decrease of publications during the start, the first year to the fourth year. What I saw was music and trends were the most present theme. And also that the text and photos were the content more present. They also have videos and some audio, especially in news about music, where they put the music of a band or something. These are that data from the articles from the main sessions, because they have a lot of other sections that were not analyzed in these for these presentations, but where they have videos and other kinds of multimedia content. Final notes, very quickly. Preguiça has shown that that were things to do on that city. They do it in a cool way. As they said, and cultural editors said, the success of that was mainly because of the language, the way that they communicate with their audience. They also engage with that other initiatives outside the publishing and the editorial content. They create association, cultural association, and engage offline with their community that were not only in the city. Multimedia content were present, but not so much in the sample that we saw. Music and trends mobilize more editorial attention. Text and photos rules specifically in the main articles that we saw. We can talk in like a soft journalism mood at the Progressive newsroom. And the lack of business model was a nuclear thing to the end of the project. But we must point. Of course, I was observer of this reality because I lived in that city. I knew the magazine, but I can point it for what I saw and what I grabbed from the interviews and the data, that Preguiça left a legacy for local media and local community. If I can finish, and with this I finish, if I can choose an image to resume what was Preguiça magazine, I choose this image. Was the first picture that they used to present themselves to the community and to the world. And what we can see here is, with more context information that can bring it on, is that 4 friends, 4 journalists that join themselves every week to drink some beer, to talk about culture and how to live in the city, to show things to the community in the language that was the language of their audience. And so that was that was the key for success, for the success of 4 years. They don't live more than 4 years because they don't thought in a business model. Thank you very much for your time and for the extra minutes.
We can't hear you, Anna. Anna.
Sorry?
Yeah, now I can hear you until now, dear.
Sorry. I was thanking Pedro for this interesting presentation, especially to talk about failure, which is as important to research as success and not as common as to study success. This was a great panel. Let's get on with the questions from the audience because the chat has been very lively during these amazing presentations. Let's start with some questions about Forbes to Dora. Teresa Mendes Flores wants to know if Forbes outside of Portugal has the same strategy as Forbes Portugal. And Carla Cardoso is curious to know for its characteristics, if you think that we can't consider Forbes online as a magazine at all. Dora?
So I can't initiate my video. So can you allow my video? Oh, okay, thank you so much. So
nah, better.
It's okay, thank you so much. So answering Teresa, I think the strategy of Forbes International is completely different from the one in Portugal. Forbes is a main international franchise, and they internationally they have a similar strategy as the Atlantic does. So they have online content, digital only content. They have the print magazine as well, but we have to subscribe the print magazine, but they are very active on social media, and the website is not just a window shop for the print magazine. Answering Carlos, no, I don't think that we can consider Forbes Portugal as an online presence because it has no editorial strategy. So they only have teasers for the print magazine. So it's an economic strategy. So I wouldn't consider it a media extension online.
Also for you, Dora, regarding work relations as an area of innovation, Jair Hatner asks what percentage of these magazines journalists are exclusive?
Okay, so that's an interesting question because they vary a lot. Monocle, for example, and I think that's one of the main reasons for their success. Monocle magazine is very consistent in everything. So when I went to their offices, they it was like I was inside the magazine, because everyone is so pretty. They don't have, for example, water bottles on the desks. They have water bottles with the Monocle brand. They don't have their, for example, their coats on the back of the, how do we say, the shares. They have specific points with the Monocle brand to put their coats. So I think the journalists that are all exclusive, okay, except the correspondents, they like to work in for Monocle, because they breathe the style of the magazine. So Monocle has an interesting way to choose the journalists. All the staff is international. For example, the newsroom has British journalists, but also has Brazilian journalists and Australian journalists, because they think it's much more easier to do the news cover of all the world with journalists from their lands. And then they have correspondent journalists. They are not exclusive, of course, all over the world. Forbes Portugal, it's the contrary. They work 90%. I don't know the numbers exactly, but Forbes Portugal, they work with freelancers, journalists. That's why I think, but it's just my opinion, that's why they don't have an editorial strategy for the website, because they don't have people working 24/7 on the media brand. And Atlantic has both. Of course, they have a few of the best journalists in the United States, and then they have a lot of freelancers.
Thank you. Also for you, Laura, Mary Hogarth wants to know, what do you consider that makes Monocle so successful? And is it having a print first strategy?
Yes, it's exactly that. So the editor, Andrew Tuck, told me that the core business is really print. So when they have, when all of the magazines and the media were going to the social media a few years ago, they thought, well, if we go to the social media, we have to give content for free. And that's not our strategy, because we are first a print brand. So it's the consistency that I think it's related to their success. And they, of course, they have a very strong business model. For example, they do something that in Portugal we may think it's very unethical, for example, but they do co-branded advertising and sponsored content for a lot of time. They don't have that, as we say, that punctual ads on the website. No, they have relations with the partners, and the partners sponsor all the section of the magazine or all the program for the radio. So I think that the business model is another successful factor. For example, when they thought about the digital strategy, they answered a market needs in London, in Great Britain, because you know that in Great Britain we only have public radio, so there aren't advertisers on the public radio, and so they launched their radio with 1 million, yes, not 1 million euros, 1 million in the coin of British, for profits. So they launched the radio with everything paid plus 1 million, not euros, in profit. So I think this is the main strategy, is consistency and never forget that they are print first strategy.
Also regarding printing versus digital, Teresa Mendes Flores asks, which are the main pros and cons regarding printing versus digital magazines? Will print magazines really disappear? Your results seem to point that printing versions are still healthy. What do you think on this subject?
Okay, so I didn't present that, but I'm also studying the business models of these magazines and others, and I am seeing that the findings are telling me that the business model that work best is the one that goes beyond editorial. For example, you have a print magazine, you have a brand extension online, but you also have a lot of things to offer to the readers beyond editorial, such as conferences, coffee shops, retail, because it's very important to the community, okay, to enhance that community, or as we were saying here in the chat, the club. So I think that print magazines will disappear, the ones that don't offer anything special on print. For example, I will show you this magazine. It's the Forbes. It doesn't have anything substantial for print. It has a few pages. It has 70 pages. The quality of paper is very poor. It's like a hair salon paper, and so it's best to read things online. But Monocle is different, because Monocle and other magazines, they are not just magazines, they are collecting work of art. Okay, so we buy print magazines because we like the materiality and like the experience of reading it on print, such as Monocle, such as Egoista, such as Slow Magazine, a lot of magazines. So, but they have features that are enhanced in print world, not in the digital world. I will take a digital magazine to a beach in my tablet, answering Teresa Mendes Flores. I really like to take digital magazines on my tablet, but there aren't. A few years ago, there are a lot of magazines that we could go download and read offline. But now that market disappeared. So I prefer to take a digital magazine to the beach, not a print magazine. But I don't like beach that so much, so I really didn't think about it. So I think printing versions of magazines are still healthy. I think that, and that is a feature that distinguish magazines from the websites or newspapers that go online, because I think the periodicity is really important for the readers. I want to, and because as you know, readers are lacking long form journalism and background journalism and contextual journalism. And this kind of journalism is privileged by magazines, not Observador, Diário Notícias, Público, or The Guardian. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for answering the questions. Now for Katya, Tim Holmes wants to know to what extent do you think the disconnect is a gimmick?
Carla, do you want to answer? Or do I, so because we are.
Yeah, hello, hello to you all. Taking the idea, I think I wouldn't consider it a gimmick, but then Katja, you can add it to the answer. I think it's more of an activist proposal, something like to make a point, in the sense that it's not an editorial project by itself, but it uses content and this idea of a magazine to make people think about this idea of disconnection, about the need to give yourself time to immerse yourself in a reading, or to go beyond the perpetual culture of constantly being in contact, constantly being connected. And so I think it's more than the idea of a gimmick, as more of an idea of making people think.
Still on this topic, do you think that offline magazine can be considered a class distinction, as looking downward to the non-readers? This was a question by Jair.
Following up on this idea of being a gimmick or not, from our studies, both on digital reading and later on disconnection, being out of touch is it's a luxury. It's something that only the ones that can afford to be disconnected can do. Because what happens is that if you are in a position, both professionally or personally, where you can be out of reach, where you can say, stop, now I don't want to be connected, now I have time for this, then of course you can do it. Otherwise, so it becomes the class distinction in the sense that only if you can actually afford to be disconnected or to have disconnection practices. And this is actually an issue that has been raised now with COVID, especially in the sense that has become very clear that only a few of us can actually telework, can actually say, now I have this time for my family, or I have this time to do something else. The rest of us have to actually keep on physically going to work, and there is a constant pressure to be online, to reach out to new job opportunities whatsoever. So it becomes a class issue, but I think we have to distinguish between Monocle and disconnect. So Monocle is, as you were saying in the chat rooms, is basically this idea of a club, right? Of an elite, of something very exclusive. The Disconnect project, it's not that idea specifically. So it's more a more philosophical approach, an idea of a philosophy of life. But of course, only a few can afford this philosophy of life. So it was not presented as an elitist project, but it becomes something for an elite. It doesn't have to be a wealthy elite, but it has to be an elite that can afford that lifestyle.
Thank you so much, Carla. Now for Pedro, Tim Holmes asks if Preguiça did do any actual research into online-offline preferences of their reading community, or was it done by gut feeling?
Answering directly, it was like a gut feeling. They don't do any research for that. I have a lot of things that I've missed on my presentation, and because I always look to the other answers, I try to advance some answers. One of the things related to research or data that they have, they use a lot at 2013. What Facebook was not what is now at the moment. And one of the curiosities is the data that they grabbed from the website and of Facebook account, and specifically about the website. Very interesting, because only 25% of their audience was from the city of Leiria. The audience were the two territories where the audience engaged more online were from Leiria and also Lisbon, 25% each. It's very interesting because they add an offline community. It was like the Carla was saying about the club. In fact, Preguiça magazine becomes like a club. Was an online news magazine, but they add a physical space. They layer with the exhibit, and they would do a lot of things. It was like an open bar. When they were doing the weekly articles that got online at every Thursday in the midnight, they had a group of people waiting for midnight to see what they have published. And some people go meet them in the newsroom where they are doing it to drink a beer or something, because they have a space like a beer on that physical space. It was in the center of the city, so they have like this engagement. I missed one important thing in my presentation. The success of Preguiça as go beyond Leiria, and they have like a franchise in Coimbra also. But I saw someone that please talk about the Preguiça magazine from Coimbra. In Coimbra, that they don't have any so success than Leiria. Although Coimbra is like a university city, because they are the oldest university in Portugal and one of the oldest in the world, and a lot the part of the year that they have lots of students there. They have a potential public to the magazine. But for me, the key issue was the crew, the team. In Leiria, it's not because that happened in Leiria. Of course, the cultural geographical context is important, but because of that four guys, the complicity between them, and the way they talk, the way they interact was for me the essential thing. And one of the question was about the business model. In fact, they don't have it, and they try to do some things to earn some money, but the main goal for them, and this was an important thing, they write what they want. As I said, it was like a rebellion for them, from some of them, because they work in local newsrooms. In here, answering to Joy Jenkins, the media landscape in Leiria were more focused on these newspapers, one daily and two weeklies. They have these two weeklies have a specific session on print for culture, but was things related to agenda, some interviews. These guys, because the magazine was online, they can do it, explore multimedia, and the most important thing is they write what they want, because things that they couldn't do in a local newsroom. Often journalists, or most of the time, they write things that they don't like. And in that case, they told me 99% of the times we wrote what we want. I give you a very quick example. I remember a video, an article that they wrote, that they they recorded on video, that they bring four guys, two musicians, one guy in the communication field, and other I don't remember, to do an article about a pool dancer teacher. No one in a local newspaper would do it something about this. And they go out, some of the guys were a little fat, and try to see in a class learning how to pole dance, and was laughing from the beginning at the end of the video. It is like a kind of language, the mood, this positive mood, this humorous mood, this, they told me, we only write positive things, the cool things, and try to explore things that the newspapers in their section, cultural sections, they don't, what's not the kind of language that they want to use as journalists. But here, we can do it. And that was the goal, what's the way they could engage the audience. Because as they told me, we, in the first place, we were part of the audience, the cultural audience of the city. Some of us are related, are involved in some cultural initiatives. It's very interesting, one of the quotes that I underlined, it was a before and after Preguiça magazine. At this moment, Leiria is one of the Portuguese cities that is trying to be the European capital of culture in 2027, and was motivated of this, like this movement that happened on the city. Of course, as someone pointed on the chat, at local communities, you have the potential of engagement it's greater. But yeah, my specific research interests are focused on local media. Yeah, but at local media, why other media, local media, don't explore, don't have this way to engage online and offline with people and try to create this imagined community to be a reality? We are talking about the same territory, the same community. Why someone can do it and others not? In case of Preguiça, was the all of people pointed the way, the mood that they actuate, that they stay in the community, and the way they talk to the people, and the way they write was the, and they don't do it for money, they do it for fun, but the fun don't pay bills. And so, but 4 years or 40 years were incredible to have a project of this. And being weekly is important. As I saw in chat, people, especially people that do research, that is not my case, specifically research on the magazine studies. In this case, they assume that being weekly was a key for success, because people are waiting. Not ever, they try at some phase of the project, trying to publish every day, and they saw that was not was a good decision. Being weekly was the best choice.
Thank you, Pedro. I will have a final question. Jair Hatner had a question for Dora that myself I am curious about, but I think it can be extended for all. We want to know how did COVID-19 impacted digital magazines? Wired, for instance, had a great campaign with very low subscription fees for the print edition. Have you observed any changes like this related to the current state of the world? And what are the changes that you can point now in magazines in this period?
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So I have seen that question before. It's a very interesting question, but I don't have a good answer for Jair, because neither Monocle or Forbes did anything about COVID. So we looked at, for example, the newspapers, they gave away the content about COVID for free, but Monocle, we didn't, it's like COVID never existed. So, and Forbes as well. Only The Atlantic made some special sections about COVID, but it wasn't an investment. I don't know why. Perhaps because COVID is a daily coverage and hard news, and the magazines are not so much interested in covering daily topics. But I didn't see anything For example, reading Monocle from March or April 2020 and from October 2019, it's the same thing, as well as Forbes. So I don't have a good answer for Jair.
Do any of the other presenters want to comment on this?
I think we don't have much time.
Yes, I think now, yeah. I was just, I've written down on the chat, commenting on what Dora was saying. I think that magazines such as Monocle and Forbes, for them, COVID has a negative impact on the lifestyle, right? So there are magazines to which keeping up with the lifestyle, keeping up with the image, is something very important. So I think we watch the same in digital influencers in Portugal. If you watch some of the digital influencers that are strongly based on lifestyle, especially an upscale lifestyle, they've kept their publications as if COVID didn't exist, or basically with something like the glamorous side of the pandemic, right? So like what you can do in your amazing home, red decorations and things like that. So I think I think it was a strategy in the sense that they were trying to keep their club in a bubble, right? So they were trying to keep out it's not happening. We are going to return to very quickly to a certain lifestyle, and we are protected here. And so I think I think for some readers, it was an escape route. So it was something that they even enjoyed it, because I watched some of the comments on digital influencers that had that strategy. And basically people were saying things like, oh, I'm so glad I'm here because I don't have to read all the news about COVID, or this is like something that I can actually ease my mind. So I think it was most definitely, I don't know if it worked. It wouldn't work for me, but I think it was a thought of strategy. I don't know if it was well thought of, but it was a thought of strategy.
Pedro, do you want to add a comment, a final comment?
Very quick one. Only two notes. One related to magazines. I thought about. I think it is could be a problem for newspapers and for print journals in newspapers and magazines, because there are some people focused on the public and on the audience that have fear about the transmission between papers. So probably some magazines and journals don't sell so well as before. And other note, of course, Preguiça is already dead, but I challenged because of this final question. In fact, I challenged the four members, the co-founders of Preguiça, to give life for a moment to Preguiça and show to them, to the community, that in fact there are things to do, still things to do, even in this moment, particular moment. Show to the city, show to the community that are things to do in this culture and lifestyle, even with the people got stuck in their houses. But the challenge was this: why not? Why not one edition? And because this is a difficult time, to show to people that are things to do, still things to do, even in this time, difficult time.
Thank you so much, Pedro. Thank you so much, all the presenters and the audience. It was a really great session.